Welcome to the channel. Alright, today guys I want to talk about V6 versus V8. So right here I got my 2018 F-150 with the 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6, and I have my 2015 F-250 with the 6.2 liter gasoline V8. So I want to talk about just some of the differences of V6 in a truck versus a V8 in a truck, and I want to hear what you guys think. I know it's very controversial, but I think it's a good topic. What do you guys think is a better uh, engine for a pickup truck? Is it better? Is this whole turbocharged V6 movement better, or is it better just to stick with the V8? Stick with what we know. Stick with what is considered safe. So, right off the bat, I know this is not a fair comparison because really a more equal comparison would be between a 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6 and a 5.0 Coyote 2018. Now, that engine to me is a big game changer because in 2018 they introduced a new fuel system, and that increased the compression ratio significantly, and bumped up the power and bumped up the potential of that 5.0 V8, and really got it on a level playing field with the V6, and really put it a step above the competition as far as horsepower and fuel economy. And really is a great V8 engine, especially in 2018 with the updated fuel system. That to me, that's a big deal. Direct injection is a big deal. But today, for our purposes, we're going to be comparing the 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6 to my 2015 6.2 liter V8. And it's going to be a little bit easier for me to compare the two because I've driven both. I've owned the 2015 F-250 for a while. This is going on my third year now with this truck. And before this, I had the 2.7 liter EcoBoost. So I have some experience with that, and now I've been driving this for about 2,600 miles. The 3.5 liter V6 I've had now for a couple months. So I can't really speak a lot on the 5.0. I know it's a great engine. I know it's more comparable to the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, but I want to just talk about the differences between the traditional V8, like in the 6.2 liter V8 here, like in this F-150 or F-250, versus a EcoBoost. So right off the bat, the main gain or the main claim to fame with the EcoBoost is going to be fuel economy. Now, fuel economy on the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, it is what it is. A lot of guys say it's not good. Some guys say it's really good. It depends on how you drive it. But at the end of the day, you really are going to be hard pressed to get an EcoBoost to burn more fuel than a big V8 like in this F-250. Potentially, you could get really good fuel economy if you drive it for fuel economy purposes. But regardless of how you drive, I don't think you'll be going under 15 miles per gallon in this truck. But that being said, being that it does make as much power as it does and as much torque as it does, if you were getting on it, it will burn fuel quickly. Now, compared to the 6.2 liter V8 and the F-250, this thing can drink gas. If you baby this truck and drive it with as much fuel economy, or drive it as good as you can as far as fuel economy goes, you're probably going to get the worst of this truck. And that just comes from experience. You could probably get 15 to the gallon in this if you tried, and you probably get about 15 to the gallon if you really beat on this. So that's kind of how it works out as far as fuel economy goes. Another interesting thing about this V6 is it really has a really interesting torque curve. From about 1900 RPM, it's making a significant amount of torque. I think Ford claims 90% of its torque is made between about 1900 RPM all the way up to like the top of the RPM band. I can't remember exactly where, but somewhere in the 4,000s toward the top. It makes 90% throughout with a max torque at about 25. I think it's 22 to 2,500 RPM. It makes this max torque of 470 foot-pounds of torque, which is insane, which is best in class for any light-duty pickup, gasoline or diesel. So that's really interesting thing, and you can really tell, you can really feel it. So when you're driving the EcoBoost, in my opinion, it feels like a bigger engine. It feels bigger than the 6.2 liter V8 in this truck. And the reason I say that is because the RPMs stay really low. They're not like, to get to speed, you're not really needing to downshift as much. The RPMs just kind of creep. It feels really, it doesn't feel that fast because it's not really downshifting. But when you get on it, it really proves that it has torque all throughout the RPM band. Literally, the rear tires are struggling for traction from like 0 to like 65 miles per hour. It's pretty impressive. Where on the other hand, when you're accelerating in the 6.2 liter V8 in this F250, it has the downshift, it has the rev really high, and then it doesn't feel like you're going anywhere. You don't really feel the speed until you're up to speed, and then you're never really breaking loose in the rear or losing traction back in the rear. Whereas in this, you're really able to put down a lot more power from a lower RPM band. And it's interesting because it has that low end power and it has the power on the top of the RPM band. Whereas this, it's got all its power. I think it's got about 400 horsepower or 400 foot-pounds of torque in it. This model with the 6.2, I believe, was only making 385 horsepower. It's got all its power in a narrow RPM band toward the top of the RPM band, whereas this has just got power everywhere. So it's just really a different experience. And potentially, like I said, you could get 20 miles to the gallon here, and you could probably, I mean, if you were a straight highway with this truck, you maybe can get, I don't know, 17 if you're lucky. If you really, you got to go slow. You can't really push 80. In this, our last road trip, I mean, half the time I was pushing 80 miles per hour, and we still brought home 20 miles to the gallon. So that says a lot about this drivetrain. One interesting thing, though, that I would like to see, and I don't know if it's possible or the logistics behind it, is I would like to see a EcoBoost V6 and inside of a F250. And what's really interesting about that is weight savings. And that's going to be like, I'm going to kind of roll that into the next thing I'm going to talk about here. So for this engine, it is the heaviest engine that you can get inside of an F-150. The EcoBoost is. The 5.0 is the next lightest, and then the 2.7 is the lightest engine you can get in an F-150. Now with the 6.2 liter V8, that's the lightest engine that you can get in the F-250, but that's a cast iron block. I believe that's aluminum heads. This drivetrain is really heavy. It's a big V8. It's actually physically a big V8. I believe it's a big block. Technically, it's a remnants of a big block V8. It's an extremely heavy drivetrain. This drivetrain is extremely light compared to the weight. This drivetrain on this V6 is extremely light compared to this V8. And one of the struggles with the weight of your engine is dealing with the payload of the truck, and also the axle carrying ability, the carrying ability of the front axle. Now, when you're putting something like this plow on your truck, you're hanging 1,000 pounds of weight far from the center of gravity. You're hanging this weight really far. It's really hanging far off the front end. So what's happening is all that length is magnifying the weight of the plow, and it really does put a lot of weight on your front axle. And it is challenging to mount a plow on a truck like this because it's not hard to go over the weight rating of the front axle. A lot of times when you even get a heavier drivetrain, it's even harder to handle this weight and get it legal to carry this kind of weight. So what's really interesting is what you have to do to carry this kind of weight on the front is you have to counterbalance this weight with some kind of counterweight. For us, we use tube sand. It comes in these heavy duty bags. You need at least 400 pounds behind the rear axle in the bed of this truck, so that you're pulling this rear end down and you're pulling some of that weight off of the front axle, and that will bring this rating back. Because if you were just to hook this plow up and pick that blade up, you'd overload your front axle, and then your rear end would be too light and you wouldn't have enough control to safely drive down the road, and plus your axle rating would be overrated. Now we use like 100 extra pounds. The minimum is 400, and I think we use like 200 extra pounds behind it, just to make it ride a little more level, a little more even. But that's one of the challenges, is having that heavier drivetrain is putting more weight on your front axle. If you were able to take away a lot of that weight with something like this, you'd have a lot more ability to carry something heavy on the front end. And what's really interesting is with that V6, the low end pushing power, you'd be able to push snow like nobody's business, because the torque is so low. And as far as horsepower and torque goes, you'd be pushing snow and doing, everything that the V8 does, and be doing it a lot better. Now, obviously, there's probably some issues there with longevity. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly how that works. That's definitely something that we should talk about in the comments section. What is the difference between the longevity of a V6 that's turbocharged versus a big V8? It's kind of a tough thing to know or talk about. Not a lot of people really know about it. But I will say this. The bigger V8 being a bigger displacement engine, it doesn't have the balance that the V6 has. The V6 literally runs so much smoother. Just at idle, it runs so much smoother. With the V8 on the 6.2, you can literally feel this thing idling. Like, even though it's supposedly bigger and has more, supposedly can handle being worn out or won't wear out quickly, it literally vibrates more. The pistons are literally bigger. It doesn't balance as well, as the smaller V6 has less internal vibration, runs smoother, everything like that, idle smoother. Now, I think the whole thought behind this lasting longer is you have 2 more cylinders, you have 2 more connecting rods, you have more bearings, more surface area in the engine. So technically, a lot of people think that it will last longer. I'm not sure if that's true. I honestly think that they're virtually going to be identical as far as life goes. I mean, realistically, nowadays, you're not really seeing like engine failures because they're wearing out. I mean, sure, you see a few engine failures from the factory, but as far as wearing out, you don't really run into that issue too much. Usually, they last longer than the cabs of the truck. Usually, you're going to rust out a steel body truck before the engine goes. So that'd be something interesting to see like a lightweight EcoBoost platform engine inside of a F-250. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. I don't want to go on too long. Leave in the comment section what you guys think about the what's better for towing, what's better for a truck. I know there's more that I missed, but we'll use the comment section. Obviously, I want to talk about a few more things real quick. Benefits of this when it comes to towing is going to be your engine braking. Really, that's the main thing. This thing can engine brake like nobody's business. The EcoBoost, not as good. Obviously, it don't have as much internal mass moving around, doesn't engine brake. That's the main benefit to this big V8. But leave in the comment section what you guys think is better. What do you think will last longer? Would you like to see an EcoBoost in the F-250? I think that it could work. I think that they could make an EcoBoost have the longevity and dependability to go inside of an F-250. But let's talk about that in the comments section. Anyway, guys, I'm going to sign out. Before I go, I want to show you guys the mud flaps on these trucks. One's got Husky Liner, one's got WeatherTech. What do you think is better, Husky Liner or WeatherTech? Here are the WeatherTechs. It's more of a square look, more square, more I don't know. I think it looks really good on the F250. They've held up real good over the years. They've been on here for a couple of years now. Held up good, a lot of protection. And here are the Husky Liners. Looks better to me on the F150 than the WeatherTechs would. They have more of a curved look. The WeatherTechs are easier to put on. Husky Liners were a little bit tougher to put on, but still nice. What do you guys think is better, Husky Liner or WeatherTech? Let me know in the comment section, and we'll talk about this stuff. We'll talk about what's a better engine, V6 or V8. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Bye.